This week in post, creating the perfect seascape photo by combining several images. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In Post. Thanks very much for joining me today. I'm going to continue with this seascape theme this week. Big shock if you've seen my work before, right? You know, Scott, ocean, yeah, it's true. But this came out of the San Diego workshop that I did a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned this particular technique in the field earlier this week, where you have a scene with water or anything else moving through different areas of the scene. Plant your tripod, get your settings dialed in, and take a few photos, and then you can combine the best parts of them in post-processing. I've talked about this before, but since this came up again in the workshop, I figured it'd be good to talk about this particular technique again. So I've got these two photos here that we're going to put together. So this first one has almost everything that I want. It's got this nice sweep of water over here. There's a good wave going through. Wasn't much happening in the sky that morning, but that's all right. We'll just leave it small up there. Got a nice sweep of water through here, but this area in the foreground between these two rocks is kind of dead. It's dark. It's not very interesting. I'm going to right arrow over to the other photo here. Now this area is nice. It's all filled in. Everything's looking good. The spill here is okay, but I think less attractive than the previous one. I don't have anything here. And the wave, okay, it's all right. I think ultimately I prefer the position of this other wave just from a compositional perspective. So what I'm going to do is take these two images and bring them into ON1 layers to blend them together. So I'll select both of these guys and I'll just go to File, Plug in Extras, and I want to choose Open as Layers in ON1 Layers. That way both images are brought into layers and they're each put on their own layer. So I'm going to hit that and I'll see you on the other side. All right, I've got both images in ON1 layers, and let's take a quick look at how they ended up getting stacked up. Looks like our foreground here, which is this wash here, ended up on top. So I'm going to call that, double click on it, and rename it foreground. Let me turn it off for a moment. And then our bottom layer, select that, has everything else. And I like to call the photo that has almost everything that I want my base photo. Now, as far as the blending goes, the blending becomes very easy. We're on a tripod. Nothing else has changed in the scene. The rocks aren't moving. Everything's already aligned. And so it's really just a matter of doing some basic masking. Now, I like to take the base photo and put that on top and then reveal things, paint away parts of the base and reveal what's beneath. That approach, that logic works best for my brain. You could do it the other way around. If you have a scene that you wanted to, take the mask and make it, completely black and have the revealing the top layer. It doesn't matter which approach you like or which one makes more sense to you, as long as you understand how you're doing your masking. So I'm going to put the base layer on top, and so now I'll re-enable the foreground at the bottom. So again, base is still selected. If I take that all the way to 0, you can see what's going on here. So with base selected, I'm going to grab my masking brush. I want full opacity. I'm going to increase the feather a little bit, and I'm definitely going to increase the size. And the best part is, since I'm already lined up and everything is ready to go, I don't have to be particularly careful with my brush strokes. The rocks have not changed, right? Those do not move around between the shots. And then it's just a matter of where do I want to decide that I stop. And maybe around here I'll stop. You notice I'm brushing over this rock, but it doesn't matter. The rock has not changed between the two scenes. I've got a little bit of a seam here. I'm not brushing, I'm just pointing. I got a little bit of a seam here, so I can get my brush and maybe reduce the opacity halfway or so, and take the size down and kind of just blend that in there a little bit until it looks kind of normal. Oop, that was a bad brush stroke. Something like that. I'm getting a little bit sloppy here. But you're getting the idea of what I'm doing here. It's just to kind of make those nice and smooth and blend them together. And perhaps I should have done a very low opacity, like 20%, and move those through there. And then that is really it. The masking job is done. So from here, what do? You want to take both of these layers and make them into a single layer. You've got a couple of choices. You can either merge the layers together. That's a destructive workflow, but generally that's how I work at this stage. I'll merge them together. So I'll get this guy here. I'll click merge. and I'll just crush everything down into a single layer. Because I'm not going to go back to those component layers. That's just my workflow. If you don't like that, let me undo that. You can also create a new stamped layer. Up in the layer menu, you can say new stamped layer. That will take the contents of all these layers and put them on a brand new one. So I turn off the visibility of my other layers. All layers are invisible. The one top layer is visible. It has everything in it that I want. And from here, you do your normal stylization like you do with any other photo. So that is it. That is the fundamentals of how this technique works. Of course, you could do as many different photos as you needed. If you had 3, 4, 5, each one had a different element you wanted to bring in, it's totally fine. You can composite all of those together. Again, I tend to work in pairs. I'll take 2 photos, merge the pieces together, mask the pieces together I need, merge them down to a layer, and kind of keep on going. So at the end, I have a single layer that has all of my changes in it. But you can work through your masking as you like, making stamped layers and rearranging the stack. The point being, it's a technique that is made very easy to use when you have done a little bit of forethought in the field, planted that tripod, taken several photos, and then do a simple masking job to blend them together. And that's the tip of the week. Make these composites and make them easy on yourself. Use that tripod out in the field. That'll do it for this week in post. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, let me know somehow. Comments on the video below. Social shares are always appreciated. You got questions, by all means, ask me. Usually turn an answer around in a day or so. And maybe I'll use your question to feed the idea behind a future episode of In Post or in the field. I'm always looking to hear what's on your mind photographically. Well, until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.